Well, hello, everybody. My name's Seth. I'm a full-time fantasy author, and welcome back to my channel. So if you're new here, I make videos about writing and about being an author and all that kind of stuff. If you're into that, definitely stick around. If you've spent any time hanging around my channel or any of my social media, you probably know that for many years now, I've had a Patreon page. This is a subscription website where you can go and support creators. And I've had an active Patreon for quite a few years now, but I am in the process of closing it down. And I wanted to talk about what's coming next and about the process of closing it down as well. One of the things that I've been realizing over the last couple of weeks is that anytime there's a change, it's really hard. In fact, I'm realizing that I just have a tremendous amount of resistance to changing things. And I, first of all, don't like that about myself. But second of all, I'm just acknowledging how hard it is in my own life to make some of these changes. Now, some of you might be wondering why this is such a big deal. And in the grand scheme of things, it's actually not, but it kind of is. Anyway, let me talk about it. So there are really two sides to being an author. There's the creative side, which is writing books and telling stories, and then there is the business side, which is running your life as if it's a small business. And if you want to be a successful author, at least financially successful, then you have to run your life like it's a business. But this leads to some kind of uncomfortable things. See, every business, including being an author, is divided into what you might call bands, where you can grow to a certain point, but then the things that grew you to that point, like the actions that got you to that point, just stop working to propel you any further. Let me be excruciatingly practical with this for a moment. So if you are a new author, then the actions that get you to earning, let's say, $50,000 a year will not take you to earning $100,000 a year. You need different actions. So for that first $50,000, you can really just write books and publish them. And if you write a good enough book, it will eventually be noticed by enough people, and you will probably be able to make about $50,000 a year. But to move from $50,000 to $100,000 requires different actions. Things like social media, things like building a community. Once you do that, that's when you can start leveling up from, let's say, $50,000 a year to six figures, $100,000 a year plus. But when you hit $100,000 a year, the things that got you there will not necessarily take you to the next level. I know a lot of people who get stuck in this loop of just doing the same things over and over and over again, and they never are able to break out past that. Well, in my business, one of the areas that I started developing very early in my career and then just never really put any time and attention into was my Patreon page. And even though it's served me really, really well over the years, it just hasn't ever grown beyond a certain point. So the things I was doing initially that got me from 0 patrons up to 100 patrons stopped working to get me beyond that. And so I had to change up my strategy, and I ended up, over time and through changing strategies multiple times, I ended up getting about 500 patrons. And the number would fluctuate anywhere from 480 up to 550, but then it just halted. The growth, I mean. I plateaued at 550 and I just stayed there. But the amount of work that I was doing continued to be the same. So same amount of work and same amount of reward, which, isn't a terrible thing, except that it's a lot of work. And it not only is it a lot of work, but there's a lot of stress associated with it because I have to just put chapters out constantly, right? I do 5 chapters from 2 different stories every week. That is Monday through Friday, 10 chapters a week that I'm putting out. And honestly, I would love to be able to sustain that pace, but I can't. And even when I can sustain that pace, the level of stress that it brings is really, really high. So what does all of this have to do with anything? Well, just like you have to shift actions if you want to break through the ceiling of each band, I've realized that I have to shift actions if I want to take my subscription model any bigger. And I think I do. And so I've decided to make some changes. Man, that was a long and roundabout way to say that, wasn't it? But I hope you can find some value in all of that rambling about your own business and your own author career. So what am I changing to? I'm going to be shutting my Patreon down. Instead, I'm going to be moving over to Ream Stories. Reamstories.com is a writer-centric subscription website, similar to Patreon, but it has a lot of functionality that just makes it easier for me as a writer to do what I need to do. I can upload entire manuscripts at a time that will automatically then be parsed out, and I can simply set a release schedule and it will auto-release everything. I don't have to sit there and manually go through each and every single post, uploading my content for that chapter and then determining who it's supposed to go to. No, I can just automate all of that. And you would not believe what a huge benefit that is. Not only does it take my time in order to manually do everything, but the burden of potentially having missed something, like the mental burden of it on Patreon, was just too high. And so I've been able to get rid of all of that trouble with Ream Stories. Ream Stories also has a bunch of other really cool features for authors. And so if you're an author and you're interested in subscriptions, I would definitely recommend checking it out. Now, it is a new company, and that means that it's still growing. There are still some challenges that need to be overcome. But the team over at Ream Stories is incredibly responsive to identifying those challenges, and they're actually listening. And not only are they actually listening, but they're actually fixing things. And see, this is one of the things that Patreon has just failed to do since day one. There have been a lot of different features that people have requested, and they just have never materialized. And so Ream Stories is taking a bit more of a hands-on approach, helped by the fact that it is focused exclusively on authors. That's the summary of why I'm moving over, because the features that they're offering are just that much better. Now, what's that going to mean as far as my 500 subscribers? Well, Ream Stories has a process by which they can move most of those people over, and while I'm expecting many of them to follow me to Ream Stories, chances are really good that I'm just going to lose a ton of money. But, that's okay. One of the other pieces of this whole you have to change your actions in order to level up is that you have to invest if you want to level up. So sure, while I'm going to be leaving some money on the table by not continuing with Patreon, I am convinced that making this move is going to allow me to go further faster. I think in the long term, I'm not only going to be able to break through that 550 subscriber mark, I think I'm going to get well beyond it. And so that's really what I'm doing. I'm investing both in myself, in decreasing the amount of work that I have to do and decreasing the amount of mental stress that I have. And I'm also investing in what I think is going to be a really good piece of technology that will be widely adopted moving forward. If you've been on Patreon, I just want to say thank you from the bottom of my heart for many years of support. It's no joke that Patreon really got my career off the ground. And if you're going to be joining us on Ream Stories, I'm very excited about that. I think some really cool stuff's going to be coming there. I'm going to be releasing more content on Ream Stories than I was able to on Patreon, again, because the overall burden is less, which is going to allow me to do more with my subscription content. If you're interested in checking it out, you can go ahead and sign up at reamstories.com/SethRing. There will be a link in the description below. And there's actually a coupon code, Seth, all one word, capital S, capital E, capital T, capital H. I don't know why I said one word. I meant to say uppercase. Anyway, capital SETH, right? It's a coupon code. It'll get you a free month if you sign up and you want to check out my content.